Okay, here's what the average American history book has to say on the subject of African American history. It all started about this time in this place where these people met those people. These people saw an opportunity to make piles of this stuff by taking those people to a new place and putting them to work, whether or not they wanted to go. In this new place, let's just call it America, those people were forced to do things such as this, and that, under constant threat of that, and this. Turn the page and we start seeing people like him, her, and them. The next few pages cover the whole civil rights movement, culminating in the election of this guy. And that's about all she wrote. Wait a minute, they just covered about 400 years of history in a few short pages. There has to be more to it than that. Well, if you get the feeling there must be some missing pages out there, you're absolutely right, and we're going to help you find them.
Many African Americans, disenchanted with life in the South after Reconstruction, left the region in search of better opportunities out west, traveling by wagons, horses, trains, and some by foot, many following the footsteps of their forefathers who traveled the Trail of Tears with their Native American slave owners. Pockets of African Americans began popping up in towns west of the Mississippi River. Following the oil boom in 1901, the city of Tulsa was on its way to becoming one of the top oil-producing centers of the country. O.W. Gurley, a wealthy African-American landowner from Arkansas, was a participant in the Oklahoma Land Run of 1889. Gurley moved to Tulsa in 1906 and purchased 40 acres of land to be exclusively sold to African Americans. A little more than a decade later, Greenwood was home to 600 successful businesses, including 21 restaurants, 30 grocery stores, doctor's offices, 2 movie theaters, a hotel, hospital, and 2 schools, all of which served a thriving black middle class. Greenwood, a neighborhood north of the Frisco Railroad tracks, was first referred to by whites as Little Africa. It was later known as Black Wall Street. By 1921, Greenwood's African American population numbered over 10,000. Unfortunately, as the community of Greenwood flourished, so did the resentment towards it by Tulsa's white residents. Little by little, racial tensions began to escalate. The Ku Klux Klan, whose numbers were estimated at 3,000, began to make their presence known with frequent rallies in the city as a reminder to African American men and women to stay in their place. On May 30th, 1921, an incident occurred when 19-year-old Dick Rowland, a shoe shiner employed at the Main Street Shine Parlor, had to use the restroom. He was going to a restroom at the nearby Drexel building. There he encountered Sarah Page, a 17-year-old white elevator operator, whom he accidentally stumbled into while entering the colored elevator. A clerk at Renberg's clothing store heard what sounded like a woman scream and saw a young black man rushing from the building. Page was found distraught, claiming that she had been assaulted by a Negro. The authorities were notified. Rowland was quickly placed in custody at the county courthouse. Word spread quickly, and soon hundreds of angry whites brandishing shotguns and torches surrounded the county courthouse, demanding that Rowland be released to their custody. A small group of African American men marched to the courthouse, hoping to prevent Rowland's removal. Tensions continued to escalate as the crowd of angry armed whites grew to 2,000 men demanding Rowland's release. Later that evening, scores of black men, also armed, began arriving in their vehicles. Eventually, a scuffle broke out and shots were fired. The resulting melee left both blacks and whites dead in the street. Blacks struggled to save their neighborhood, but were hopelessly outnumbered by the mob of angry whites. Drive-by shooting into black homes took place. Black businesses were looted and even firebombed from the air by white pilots flying surplus World War I planes. Random acts of violence were perpetrated on Greenwood's African American residents throughout the night. When the smoke cleared, all of Little Africa lay in ruin.
Our mother told us to get up under the bed, and we got up under the bed. We could just see just their feet. They came in and set fire to the curtains and one stepped on my fingers, and my sister put her hand over my mouth to stop me because she could tell I was fixing to holler.
We could hear him from there. I talked to him, said, "Nigga, do you have a gun?" I think he said no. And he said, "Don't set my house on fire, please." We didn't tell him why, but after he left, not long after he left, to set it on fire, and we had to scramble down in a hurry. And his sister, that's 6 years old, she said, "Is the world on fire, Kitty?" I said, "I don't know, but we in trouble, deep trouble."
We didn't have no home. Everything was burned. All there where we lived just burned down to the ground.
10,000 men, women, and children were left homeless. The death toll was believed to be over 100. The exact number was never determined. Sarah Page, the young white woman at the center of the incident, never pressed charges against Rowland. To this day, no one was ever charged with any crime related to this massacre. In the years after the riot, surviving residents were successful in rebuilding the once vibrant neighborhood. It thrived again until the desegregation of the 50s and 60s began to lure blacks out of the neighborhood. Black Wall Street never reached the prominence that it had before the riot. The Greenwood section of Tulsa, Oklahoma, that earned the name Black Wall Street, was one of a couple of black communities to be referred to as Black Wall Street. While Greenwood was the most famous and successful of these communities, there was a common theme of each successful black community of its time. In each case, African Americans who were denied opportunities in mainstream American society band together to create a self-sustaining community based on economic cooperation. In each case, there was a direct correlation between the success of the community and the number of times a dollar was circulated within the community before leaving it. The moral of the story is that virtually any oppressed people can prosper, even in a hostile environment, if they are willing to work together.